So what is a Technical Service Bulletin, or a TSB? You hear that term all the time, all over the internet, on forums, car owners, car enthusiasts. So let's clarify a few things about Technical Service Bulletins so you would know the details about them. Technical Service Bulletins are communications between the manufacturer of the car and the service center or the dealership that services the car. Folks, you need to know one thing about Technical Service Bulletins. They are not recalls. Recalls have to do with safety. Safety recalls are either voluntary or involuntary. Voluntary being manufacturer says, hey, we have detected a safety defect. We're voluntarily issuing a recall so we can fix them and we would not have problems with our customers, keep our cars safe. Involuntary is when the government finds out that they have a safety defect and forces them to do a recall. But a Technical Service Bulletin is not a recall. Usually, a requirement of the Technical Service Bulletin is what warranty applies. Is this under the comprehensive warranty? Is it under powertrain warranty? Is it under one of the extended warranty, like the long warranties, like for example a battery or body or whatnot? That's all it specifies. Sometimes they issue it so far later that all cars are out of warranty on this particular issue. Basically what they're trying to communicate is either this is a known issue that you should be aware of, or this is a non-standard repair issue where normally if you go to repair this part you have to buy the whole thing. Well, we issued a service kit to repair this part versus replacing it. So sometimes it's a non-standard repair procedure, or different specific diagnostic procedures that are not in the regular repair manual. That's usually what TSBs are. However, there is a very important thing that you need to know about TSBs, and I'm going to classify them as three types. First one is the great ones, the ones that are in detail and they're actually timeless. Then the production ones, talk about those. Then the horrible ones. You'll have all three kinds. Let's kind of dive into them. Let's start with the simple one, the really good ones. Folks, every single repair needs to start with a very basic thing: verifying that you have the problem, diagnosis, what caused this problem. That's so important. So many TSBs start with the VIN range. It's very important that you pay attention to the details, because most folks, they'll get a TSB, they'll skip everything until they get to what to replace. That's a very bad idea with good TSBs, because the first thing I'll tell you is these are the affected cars, because sometimes they discover a problem, they make a production change, and then anything in between this VIN and this VIN had the old part, but everything after this, it already has this repair, so this TSB is really irrelevant. You should continue with regular diagnosis. And then it will tell you, do you have this specific concern exactly as written? If you don't, or it's not exactly, then no, this does not apply. Return to normal diagnosis. If you have the exact symptoms, then proceed to the specific diagnostic steps that they're going to give you. And at some point, they're going to ask you, do you have these diagnostic results? If yes, this applies, proceed. If no, this does not apply, proceed with regular repair. I see so many technicians, DIYers, folks, skip that part. You can't skip the diagnosis, folks, because this is a good TSB. You just gotta do is follow it to the T. And you're gonna realize sometimes it applies, sometimes it does not. That is something you need to be aware of. The other thing with TSBs that you gotta pay very close attention to, sometimes the parts are updated, or there's a special service kit that you will not normally find it in the repair manual. So really, when you approach a TSB like this, you need to start with, does this apply to this car, by checking the VIN range. Do the diagnosis steps and make sure you arrive at the conclusion of, per the TSB, that yes, this does apply to this problem. Then go back and read the parts information before you do anything, because sometimes it'll be multiple repair procedures, or which one do you, based on the diagnosis, it could be multiple things. So you really need to read into the parts and the part numbers, because sometimes they're updated parts, there's special parts for this particular problem, whatnot. Then the second type of TSBs, the production ones. This is one that is dangerous. flat out, because these are usually the TSBs that are issued shortly after the vehicle is sold new, and usually they have very little information. If you have this problem, replace this part, or do this update, or do this, the end. No diagnostic, no nothing. Sometimes they have a very vague VIN range. Because these are production problems, they won't give you the details. They won't give you diagnostic steps. They just want you to do this if you have this problem. The end. They won't share the data with you. And that all sounds great, but here's the problem. We recently actually had a Prius that had one of those TSBs, and it was misdiagnosed. There was a whole, leave that for another video. That TSB applied to the car when it was new. So the car came out in 04, TSB came out in the end of 04, beginning of 05. We're slightly 20 years later. That TSB that no longer applies because this car is 20 years old. It's gonna have normal problems. You can't just find the first TSB. Oh yeah, I have these same codes. Let's just replace this part. Don't do that. That's a bad idea, because this is an obsolete TSB. So we're gonna talk about that part as well. The third type is a horrible TSB. Hey, engineers, manufacturers, they're also humans like me and you. We all make mistakes. That's just how this works. Horrible TSBs are ones that they keep getting updated and updated and updated and updated because they were just horribly written and really not done well. They don't have diagnostic steps. They're very vague. If you have this problem, replace this part. Tell you nothing else, and they're current. Like the car is 10 years old and they come out with it. It's like, are we sure we have this problem? Does this apply? Now they're almost like encouraging you to part can in the car. And when it doesn't fix it, you get so flustered. It's like, wait a second, but the TSB said, but the TSB is not diagnosing the car for you. You need to do your diagnosis. Keep the TSB in mind that we may have this problem, but do your diagnosis, because TSBs like that, they get updated so quick. Before it gets updated on the official, the websites and whatnot, they'll get updated and you've already missed half of it. Be careful with no diagnostic TSBs, and always look at the date. When was this TSB issued? Was it a month or two after the car was made? Likely that doesn't apply 20 years later. Heads up on that one. That's very important. Then let's talk about there is a red tape with TSBs that you actually need to know about. TSBs are communication between the manufacturers and their dealers, but they're also mandated to be public. Meaning, if you go on NHTSA's website, you can actually access the TSBs. However, you should not be sharing TSBs on forums, printing them out and handing them out to all the community, and because technically they are still protected. They are not to be shared. They are for the end user to see and understand things. You need to be aware of that. That's why you will not see me put a TSB on this video, because they are not for sharing. You need to be aware of that. So next time you go on the forums, don't go sharing that TSB you downloaded from NHTSA, because they're not meant for that. Now let's go past that. Here's the problem. See, you're talking about two entities, the manufacturer and a government website. They don't sync very quickly. It's not live. A TSB comes out, it immediately shows up on the other side. There's some updates. Here's the problem that I notice sometimes. TSBs on the manufacturer's tech info, which is, by the way, every manufacturer, right to repair, you can access their official data and see all their TSBs official from the source with some subscription, of course, but you can access it. They will make a TSB obsolete and come out with a new one, updated one. But the one you're getting from your buddy on the forums is from 10 years ago, and it's the old one, has the old information. Don't fall for that one, folks, because that's a mistake. I see it all the time. Customers come to the shop with a TSB in their hands. Oh, I need this done. Sir, this is obsolete. This is old information. It doesn't apply anymore. There's an updated one. Well, can I get a copy? No, you can't. Again, it's not for sharing. I can tell you what's going on. I can show you, but I'm not going to give you a copy because there's a licensed agreement for this stuff. So you need to get the most, if you're going to actually take action on a TSB, you need to get the most updated version of that. How do you do that? Go to the manufacturer's website, purchase a subscription, get all the information you want, It's your right. You bought that. You own that right. Now, but don't go sharing it because it's an end user license. You need to read this stuff. Mechanics out there, TSBs can be the greatest thing because they show you stuff that are non-standard, but they can also be your worst enemy. I see mechanics sometimes use the TSB as an exit. I don't want to do my job and deal with this diagnosis. Oh, I found this TSB, it kind of applies. Yeah, let's just do this, see what happens. Don't do that. Because remember, I've been doing this for a while. I'm going to give you the best advice. As a mechanic, always put yourself in the customer's shoes when you're about to tell them stuff. What if you made them spend all this money and then the car was not fixed? Because of your negligence, because you did not want to spend the time and actually do your due diligence. If that was you, you'd be upset. And I would too. So don't look, when you're doing diagnosis, don't look at TSBs as an escape route. Consider them, follow their diagnostic steps, but if they're not good, continue with their diagnosis, keeping this TSB in mind. We may come to this conclusion, but I need to verify it. That's important. That's a very important thing. And lastly, something that I see folks, DIYers, car owners will do all the time, which I recommend you do not do. Don't print a TSB from the forum and then go to your mechanic, hand them TSB and tell them, just do this. You just authorized your mechanic to push you out the door. That's a term that is in the industry. Basically, you're telling him, replace this part. He will replace this part, pull the car around, park it outside. Here's your keys. Have a nice day. Wait, didn't fix my problem. Well, that's not what you asked me to do. Don't do that. And the second thing is, don't give that escape route to your shop or dealership or mechanic. Let them do their homework. Even though you know there's a TSB, keep that to yourself. Let them do their diagnosis. Because if they did their diagnosis right, they may use the TSB or they may not. Because something you need to know about technicians, here's the order of receiving a car for diagnosis. First, check the concern and verify it, that it's actually there. Second, and this is a step that 90% of technicians skip, check for TSBs. Because if you have a TSB that matches your symptoms and has a diagnostic steps, see if it applies first. Because if it applies, you just saved yourself a lot of digging around and figuring things out. And if it helped you shorten that diagnosis path to reach a concrete diagnosis that this is what we need, great. But if there's nothing, then move on to your own diagnosis to find the cause. That's the real order of things. You always hear concern, cause, correction. You always hear these, but nobody actually looks at that. See, TSBs can be a great tool, but misused, they could be your worst enemy with diagnosis. That's the reality. And folks, car owners, now that you know what TSBs are, utilize them properly. They can either help you or not. Don't be upset if a TSB doesn't apply. The car can't be diagnosed. There's a lot of professionals out there just super knowledgeable that can diagnose cars without a TSB. But manufacturers sometimes will make things easier by saying, hey, we know there's a common problem. Here's how you diagnose it. Here's what you need to do. Or here's a special service kit to repair this without replacing the entire part. That's the beauty of that. But never mistake TSBs for a recall. They are not, because usually they are not safety related items. That's for example, an example of a TSB, your radio reboots. Well, here's the TSB. If you have this problem, you have this software version, this exact problem, here's a special software update that you won't find it somewhere else. That is not a safety concern. That's a reality. Just some folks will say, well, that should be a recall. My radio keeps rebooting. No, because it's not a safety concern. You can shut off your radio and drive your car safely anywhere. That's the reality. So folks, let's distinguish between the two because it's important. Folks, I hope this video was helpful and informative. I hope you learned something new. If you like it, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing to the channel. Check out some other videos. Until the next video, folks, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and you have yourself a wonderful day.